It began in silence, as executions often do. Not the screaming kind of silence, either. This was the heavy, deliberate quiet of anticipation, the kind that filled the chamber like thick smoke, curling into every breath, choking the room with a ceremonial gravity that felt almost sacred. Gabriel Marin stood between two Darthy guards, their insected limbs motionless, eyes unblinking. Their armor shimmered with the faint iridescence of organic plating, more alive than manufactured. Gabriel's own uniform, charred from the crash, streaked with dried blood, was a poor contrast. He looked like a relic, discarded and forgotten, dragged from the wreckage of a reconnaissance vessel that never should have crossed the border. Above them loomed the dais, a crescent-shaped platform carved from dark stone that pulsed faintly beneath the queen's feet. She stood tall, regal, wrapped in a living gown that shimmered with the hues of distant nebulas, violet, blue, and hints of gold. Her skin gleamed silver-green under the chamber's bioluminescent lights. Eyes like liquid mercury studied him with an unreadable expression. Queen Selatari. His first impression of her had not been her beauty, though she had that in abundance, but the stillness she carried, as if she were not part of the world but standing above it, observing the motion of planets from a higher orbit. Human, she said, her voice soft but commanding. Gabriel Marin, pilot, species designation, Homo sapiens, born of the blue planet called Earth. You stand accused of violating the sacred border of the Darthy sovereign empire. What is your defense? Gabriel licked dry lips. I took a wrong turn at Alpha Orionis. A ripple passed through the chamber, not laughter, but a kind of shocked inhalation. The Darthy were not known for their humor. Sela's lips twitched, barely. You do not deny your presence here. I crash-landed, he said, wasn't exactly planning a vacation. And the transmission from your vessel, the encrypted signal that reached your command chain before your capture. He hesitated. Protocol. So you are a spy. I'm a pilot, he replied more quietly. I send distress signals when my ship on fire. Sela stepped down from the dais. Each footfall triggered faint pulses in the floor like soft heartbeats. She walked toward him, stopping a pace too close. The air between them thickened. Her gaze scanned his face, his wounds, his posture. He met her stare with forced calm, jaw clenched. The laws are clear, she said. Trespass warrants death, no exceptions. Then why are you talking to me? Another ripple, this time from her. Not laughter exactly, but something like it passed behind her eyes. Perhaps curiosity, she murmured. You speak like one who knows he's already dead, and yet you still make jokes. Humor's a defense mechanism, Gabriel said. I figure if I can make you laugh, maybe you'll reconsider the whole decapitation thing. We do not decapitate, she said. We dissolve. He paled slightly, less messy, I suppose. She tilted her head. You are not what I expected. He swallowed. You're not what I expected, either. Sela stared at him for a moment longer. Then she turned to her guards. Release him. The guards hesitated. My queen, one rasped. I will speak with him in private. Leave us. Confused murmurs filled the chamber. Still, they obeyed. One by one, they retreated, the massive door's ceiling shut behind them with a hiss that echoed like finality. Gabriel blinked. I'm not complaining, but I didn't think monarchs usually met condemned prisoners one-on-one. They do not, she said, but I am not only a monarch, I am also curious. She walked past him, gesturing for him to follow. After a moment's hesitation, he did. Her private quarters were unlike anything he expected. Instead of cold steel or ceremonial decor, the space felt alive. Walls pulsed gently with organic light. The ceiling arched like a cathedral of bioluminescent vines. In the center of the room was a large structure, bed maybe, shaped like a blooming flower. Petals slowly rose and fell as if breathing. Sit, she commanded. Gabriel eyed the bed warily. Is it going to eat me? Not unless I command it to. Comforting. He sat carefully, perching at the edge. The bed pulsed beneath him, adjusting to his weight. It was warm, oddly gentle. Sela watched him, eyes thoughtful. You fear me, she said. Terrified, he admitted. But if I'm going to die, I figured I might as well enjoy the view. She laughed softly. It wasn't mocking. It sounded surprised. You are reckless, she said. I've been told. And yet your fear is not the kind that paralyzes. You carry it like armor. He met her gaze. I've had too. They sat in silence for a moment, the ship humming around them. Then she said, "I will not execute you tonight." Gabriel blinked. Thank you. You will remain here, in my quarters." His eyebrows lifted. What? "I grow tired of advisors who cower," she said. "I wish to speak with someone unafraid, someone different." "Your Royal Highness," he said slowly, "are you inviting me to a sleepover?" "I do not sleep, but you may, beside me." His heart thudded. "I think I missed the training manual on alien etiquette." She walked closer, the shimmer of her gown casting stars across his skin. "You may refuse, but know this, I have granted you reprieve, not freedom." Noted, he looked at the bed. "It's not gonna cuddle me, right? Only if you snore." He laughed, breathless, no promises. Hours passed, they lay side by side, neither sleeping, the bioluminescent ceiling dimmed to a soft twilight. "Tell me of your world," she said. "Earth. Yes." He closed his eyes. Oceans, endless water, sunsets that burn orange and gold, too many cities, not enough silence. "And you?" "I used to fly crop dusters, then they needed pilots for long-range missions. I liked the sky, until it tried to kill me." "You fear the sky?" "No, I fear the orders that send people into it without knowing what's waiting." She was quiet for a long time. "I was raised in fire," she said at last. "The temple of Siratash. Our rites began in flame. We learned to hold pain without screaming." He turned to look at her. "That's intense." "It made us strong." "Or lonely." She didn't answer. The next morning, he woke with her beside him. She was watching him, serene, unreadable. "You snore," she said. He groaned. "I knew it wasn't the bed." She smiled just slightly. "You live another day, Gabriel Marin." He stretched. "What about the next one?" "That depends," she said, "on whether you continue to amuse me." He smiled, meeting her eyes. "Then I guess I better be funny." And somewhere deep in the ship's heart, in a chamber lined with the laws of her people, etched in stone and scar, an old code flickered. And cracked.
Gabriel had been many things in his life: a farm boy, a reckless flyer, a half-trained scout, and now apparently a royal curiosity. His second morning aboard the Darthy flagship felt no less surreal than the first. The bioluminescent walls of Queen Selatari's chambers hummed with a quiet rhythm, echoing some organic life form that pulsed just beneath the surface. The sentient bed had cradled him through the night like a strange, affectionate animal. It made waking up feel less like rising and more like being released. He sat up slowly, careful not to disturb Sela, though she was already watching him from a reclined position on her side of the bed. The sheets, or petals, or whatever passed for bedding here, folded around her like soft armor. "Good morning, human," she said. "You survived another night." "I'm starting to think you actually enjoy my company," Gabriel replied, rubbing his eyes. "Either that or you're gathering intel on the various ways humans drool in their sleep." "Both, perhaps." She stood fluidly, her gown forming around her like mist condensing into glass. She looked as regal as ever, though her eyes lingered on him longer than the day before. Something had changed between them. Neither acknowledged it directly, but the air had softened. "Dress," she said. I would, but unless you keep human clothes in a drawer, I'm working with what I crashed in." She gestured toward the wall, where a narrow panel slid open. Inside was a clean, black jumpsuit, simple, durable, and lined with seams that suggested it could fit multiple body types. "We are not savages," she said. He grinned, debatable. Breakfast was less of a meal and more of a ritual. They sat at a table grown directly from the floor, shaped like a spiral. The food was alien, gelatinous, glowing, oddly fragrant, but not unpleasant. Gabriel watched her carefully as they ate, mirroring her motions. "Today you will accompany me to the stratagem," she said. "You will not speak unless addressed, you will not touch anything, and you will not attempt escape." "Tempting as it sounds," he said, chewing something that tasted like mango and mint, "I'm starting to like it here." "That is not the point." "I know." She stood calm. The stratagem was a vaulted hall of moving light and shifting geometry. The walls were alive with tactical overlays, star maps, simulations that rewrote themselves in real time. Dozens of officials lined the space, each more strange-looking than the last: bipedal reptilians, floating gas forms encased in light fields, and at least one being that appeared to be composed entirely of interlocking crystals. All eyes turned to Gabriel as he entered. Their expressions, those who had visible faces, ranged from disgust to confusion to something close to horror. He tried to smile. It didn't go over well. "Why is it here?" someone hissed. A female figure with 6 arms and no discernible mouth. "That," Sela said, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade, "is my guest. He will observe. But he is a prisoner. He is under my protection." That silenced the room. Gabriel felt heat rising behind his ears. An hour passed. Gabriel tried to follow the discussion. Movements on the outer rim intercepted signals, potential threats, but the language shifted too quickly, the terms too foreign. Still, he noted patterns, and every now and then he whispered observations to Sela. Sometimes she listened, sometimes she ignored him. At one point she smirked at one of his jokes. No one missed it. By the time the session ended, the tension in the room could have shattered titanium. Outside, in a quieter corridor of the ship, she turned to him. "You were warned not to speak. I whispered. You joked. And you smiled." She stopped walking, turned, looked at him with a strange light in her eyes. "You are not afraid of me." He hesitated. "I am, but I like being alive more than I like being silent." "You are reckless. You keep saying that. Because it is true. And yet," he said, stepping closer, "you haven't dissolved me yet." She stared at him for a long time. "You make people uncomfortable." "I know, but maybe they need to be uncomfortable." That night she didn't order him to her chambers. He went anyway. She stood near a large window, or a membrane that acted like one, staring out at a distant gas giant. Its swirling colors reflected in her eyes. "You should not be here," she said. "You didn't tell me to leave. I didn't invite you. You didn't have to." She turned slowly. "You presume much. I'm just trying to understand." "What is there to understand? Why a queen who dissolves her enemies let me live?" She walked toward him. "Because I wanted to." He held her gaze. "And now?" "Now I do not know." He stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth of her skin. "Then let me stay until you do." Her breath caught, not visibly, but he heard it. "You presume much," she repeated. "And yet here I am." By the 4th night they were no longer strangers. She told him of her first kill, of the way her people test their heirs in fire, of a sister who had not survived the ritual, of the weight of the crown. He told her about his brother, about the tiny farm outside Corvus Colony, about the time he flew into a thunderstorm because he wanted to know what lightning looked like from inside. "You should have died," she said. "I didn't. You are strange. You like strange. I don't dislike it." Her hand found his. They didn't look at each other, just sat in silence, fingers tangled, the ship humming its lullaby. Somewhere far above them, a warning light flickered. Back in the stratagem, one of her advisors whispered to another. "He is changing her. And not all change is welcome." But as much as she tried to quiet the storm gathering outside her mind, it roared louder each day. 3 mornings after the gala, a meeting was called unexpectedly. Sela entered the stratagem flanked by her closest advisors. Gabriel was told to remain in her quarters, though not by her directly. Instead, the order came through a guarded message delivered by a sub-commander. "Remain in her sanctum," the drone intoned. "This matter is not for foreign presence." Gabriel frowned but nodded. He knew better than to force his way into a political maelstrom without an invite. In the hall, voices rose. Zorani stood center floor, framed by a projection of rotating evidence logs. "My queen," she said formally, "the attempt on the human's life was not an isolated act. It was the culmination of sentiment that has long brewed in the shadows of this council. And I regret to say, with respect, that your protection of the outsider has allowed this infection to grow." Murmurs of agreement flowed across the room. Sela narrowed her eyes. "You suggest I am to blame for the assassination attempt?" Zorani bowed her head slightly. "I suggest your judgment has been clouded by emotional entanglement." Gasp's eyes darted, some widened in horror, others in cruel delight. Sela said nothing for a long moment. Her silence cut deeper than any rebuttal might have. "You presume much," she finally said. Zorani stood firm. "As you once told me, it is my duty to speak the truth whether or not it comforts you." That night Gabriel found her alone, not in her bedchamber but in the inner sanctum, a circular chamber lined with memory crystals. They pulsed faintly with recorded echoes, the voices of her ancestors. She didn't look up when he entered. I heard, he said gently. They question everything now, she replied. Not just you, me, my bloodline, my reign. And you still let me stay. Because I choose to. He stepped closer. You ever wonder what would happen if we just left? She turned to him. You mean flee? Number not run, leave, start again, somewhere no one cares who you were or who I am. You romantic fool. You say that like it's a bad thing. She reached out and touched his jaw, her fingers cool against his skin. It is not. Elsewhere in a darkened bay of the ship's underdeck, Zerani met with the remaining traditionalists. She will not act against him, said Venkril, then we must act in her place. Not yet, Zerani warned. If we move now, she will strike back with all her strength. We must let her be cornered, let the council force her hand, let the people demand a reckoning. And then she will have no choice but to surrender him or surrender everything. Days passed, the tension became physical. It crept along the walls of the ship like ice. The crew moved more quietly, the air vents hissed louder, the scent of fear, sharp, metallic, saturated the corridors. Gabriel stayed close to Sela, not just by her order but by his own unease. He no longer felt like a guest, he felt like a symbol. One night he asked her, do you regret saving me? She answered without hesitation, never. Even now when your throne shakes. Especially now. He reached for her hand, she let him take it. Whatever happens next, he said, I'm not walking away. Then you are a fool. Maybe, but I'm your fool. She smiled then, more sadness than joy. Then stay close, my foolish star, the storm is nearly here. And it was. By dawn, the council had called for a trial. A tribunal. And the sentence, if confirmed. Execution. Again, by the time the tribunal convened, the city ship of Veratel hummed with a quiet dread. Gabriel stood at the heart of it, his hands bound not by metal but by ceremonial energy cuffs, a symbolic gesture that stung less than chains but meant far more. The chamber surrounding him was circular, its walls carved from ancient meteorite and lined with panels of luminous script. It was a sacred place, a place where the Darthi judged not with emotion but with law. Queen Selatari sat at the apex of the tribunal, higher than the accused but level with her council. Beside her, Zerani stood once more, her composure a polished blade. Gabriel Marin of Earth, intoned the High Arbiter, a voice like molten iron. You are charged with violating Darthi space, with corrupting the throne, and with endangering the balance of our sovereign traditions. How do you answer? Gabriel glanced at Sela, her expression was unreadable. I didn't come here to break anything, he said. I crashed, I survived, then I made a friend, maybe more, the rest just happened. Laughter sharp, unkind. The High Arbiter raised one hand and the murmuring died. Friendship is not an absolution, affection is not innocence. Our law is older than your species, it does not bend for sentiment. Then maybe it should, he said quietly. Zerani stepped forward. He has destabilized the queen, she has abandoned protocol, invited him into sacred chambers, treated him as an equal. Our people whisper of heresy, they demand accountability. Sela spoke at last, and if I say I chose all of that willingly, then you choose exile. A hush fell, even the walls seemed to pause their glow. The law is clear, Zerani pressed. If the monarch places an outsider above the code, she must forfeit the crown or enforce the code herself. Meaning she kills me, Gabriel said, or steps down. Precisely. Silence again. Then Sela stood. I invoke the right of bond. Gasps, audible shock. Several council members rose from their seats. Zerani's expression finally cracked, not fear but fury. That ritual hasn't been used in over 2 millennia, she hissed. It was deemed too dangerous. And yet, Sela said, her voice calm, it remains enshrined in our laws. The right of bond, when monarch and accused fuse fates. If he survives the gauntlet, he is absolved. If he fails, he dies. And so does the queen. You would risk your own life for him, Zerani spat. I already have. Gabriel blinked. Wait, hold on, you're suggesting what now? She turned to him. We face the trial together, your fate and mine. If we survive, the law is rewritten. He stared at her, at the defiant tilt of her chin, the steel under her skin, the fire in her silver eyes. Then let's do it, he said. The gauntlet was not a battlefield. It was a chamber of trials buried deep within the core of Veratel, older than the ship itself, forged during the Empire's Blood Moon Wars. Its first trial was memory. Gabriel stood on an obsidian platform staring into a mirror that wasn't a mirror. It rippled. It showed him moments, his brother's funeral, the night he left Earth, the crash, but also the night he first heard Selah laugh, the way her fingers lingered on his wrist, the way she whispered his name when no one was listening. The mirror pulsed. "Why do you love her?" it asked. He blinked. "I never said I did." "But you do." He exhaled. "Because she sees me. Not just as a human, not just as a soldier, she sees me, and she lets me see her, that matters." The mirror shuddered, a light flared, and then it vanished. Selah emerged beside him, her skin glistened with sweat. "Yours asked too," he said. "It asked if I trusted you." "Do you?" "I do." Second trial pain. A sphere of living metal enclosed them. It pressed heat into their bones, fire through their veins. Gabriel screamed once, then bit down until blood filled his mouth. Selah didn't scream, but her breath came in broken gasps. They clutched each other, grounded each other. It passed. Third trial desire. In this chamber, nothing was real, and everything was. Selah appeared before him, cloaked in nothing but light. Her eyes were soft, vulnerable. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Forget everything else. This can be our world." Gabriel swallowed, his hands trembled. "Is this real? Does it matter?" "Yes," he said, "because I want the real you, not a dream, not a lie." Light shattered, truth returned. Selah stood across from him, tears glistening. She had been tested too, and she had answered the same. Final trial fear. A storm. Selah collapsed, her form fracturing, her breath gone. Gabriel screamed her name. The voice echoed. "Will you carry her burdens?" He knelt, lifted her, staggered through blinding wind and shards of sound. Oh yes. Peace did not descend like starlight. It came slower, fractured, uncertain. In the weeks following the rite of bond, Queen Selah Tari and Gabriel Marin became symbols of something no one in the galaxy quite had words for. They were neither myth nor legend, neither political strategy nor romantic anomaly. They were a rupture and a bridge. On Veridal, the capital ship that had once hummed with suspicion now thrummed with something stranger: hope. But hope is no gentle thing, it is heavy, it demands proof. "They want a public appearance," Selah said, her voice measured as she reviewed a stream of diplomatic messages. "Do they want us to kiss, wave, recite poetry?" Gabriel asked from the window where he stood gazing at the swirl of nebulae outside. "They want you to speak," she said, not looking up. "They want to see if your tongue can carry diplomacy as well as sarcasm." He turned to her, grinning. "You want to give me a microphone in front of 10 alien dignitaries and an audience of millions? You sure you passed that trial of judgment?" She finally looked up, the smallest smirk playing on her lips. "You will be restrained. Muzzled. Monitored." He walked over, placed a hand on her shoulder. "I can be serious, Selah. If this matters, I won't screw it up." She tilted her head toward him. "I know, but our enemies wait for us to misstep. They hope your humor will be mistaken for arrogance. Then let's make sure they know it's honesty." Their first joint appearance took place in the Hall of Kinship, a chamber carved into the crystal belly of the ship. The crowd was diverse: humans, Darthi, neutral ambassadors, and even a few members of species who'd long avoided politics altogether. Selah wore a robe of midnight silk threaded with veins of living gold. Gabriel wore a clean uniform, the crest of his old fleet replaced by a newly minted sigil, a twin star wrapped in thorns and flame. When they stepped onto the platform, a hush fell. Selah spoke first, her voice steady and melodic. She outlined the rite of bond, the trials, the survival. Then she gestured to Gabriel. "He is not Darthi," she said, "but neither is he only human. He is something else now. As am I, and that is what we offer the galaxy, something new." He stepped forward, heart pounding. "I'm not here to rewrite anyone's history," he said. "I crashed, I survived. Then, against all odds, I found someone who didn't want me to disappear, someone who saw past what I was trained to be. I didn't mean to become part of your world, but now that I am, I want to help shape it, not as a conqueror, not as a hero, just as someone who believes things don't have to end the way they always have." When he finished, silence reigned for a moment. Then a slow, low wave of applause began: hands, claws, tendrils, and wings, all joining in an awkward, surreal harmony. Later that night, Selah and Gabriel lay together in the quiet hush of her private sanctum. The bed beneath them pulsed faintly, echoing their breathing. "You surprised me," she said, head resting against his chest. "I thought I was always surprising you. Tonight you were different. Brave. He kissed her temples, so were you. I fear the coming days, she whispered. Because of the council. Because of us. He lifted her chin gently, we'll figure it out. And if we don't, then we fail but together. Zorani had not vanished. She watched, she waited, but something in her had changed. Not entirely approval, but no longer the same resistance. One evening, she requested a private audience. I did not ask you here to threaten, she said as she met Sela alone. That would be a change. I came to warn you, some alliances remain restless. They accept your choice but not your path. So what are you suggesting? Zorani hesitated. Let the human go, not in death, in freedom. Let him walk away now while peace is still possible. And if I don't, then you must show them he is more than yours, that he is theirs too. Sela was silent. Gabriel found her packing the viewing garden later. You're thinking too loud, he said, walking up behind her. Zorani believes we must share you, make you into a symbol, a bridge. Sounds familiar. But in doing so, I lose the part of you that is only mine. He took her hands. Sela, you never lose me, not unless you push me away. What if I ask you to choose peace or us? He shook his head. No, don't, because the answer will break us both. Then what do? We make peace with what we are, not what they want us to be. A summit was called. An invitation went out to the Human Alliance. For the first time, they responded. And sent a delegation. On the day of arrival, Gabriel stood beside Sela in the docking bay, heart thundering. It had been nearly a year since he left human space, longer since he saw anyone from his own kind. The doors hissed open. Two human officers stepped forward, uniformed, rigid. And behind them, a woman he hadn't seen in years. Lena, he breathed. His sister. Gabe. They embraced tight, real. You look like I lived through an alien romance novel. Pretty much. She stepped back looking at Sela. Her expression was wary but respectful. Your Highness, thank you for not dissolving my idiot brother. He made it difficult. He always does. The talks were tense, the humans were skeptical, the Darthi remained guarded. But slowly, through shared stories, laughter, and compromise, walls began to fall. By the end of the week, a framework was in place. Not peace, not yet. But the bones of it. On their last night aboard Veretal before the humans departed, Sela and Gabriel walked the Starbridge, a glass tunnel that arched high above the ship, offering a view of the infinite. They'll want you back, Sela said quietly. Maybe. Will you go? He didn't answer right away. Not yet, he finally said, not until we finish what we started. And what is that? He looked at her, smiling. Something new. She stopped walking, pulled him close. Then let us build it together. Always. And above them, the stars waited. Not for war, not for conquest, but for a future neither species had dared imagine. And for the first time, two hearts beat side by side across the cosmos, not in defiance, but in hope. It began with a ripple in the silence. Not war, not protest, but uncertainty. 3 weeks after the summit, a minor alliance known as the Ulzari Confederation withdrew from negotiations. They cited a lack of clarity. They used words like discomfort and cultural incompatibility, but everyone knew what they meant. They didn't believe in the bond. They don't think it will last, Sela said, watching the message projection flicker before her. Us or the peace? Both. Gabriel stepped behind her, rested his hands on her shoulders. What do you think? I think it must. That's not hope, that's obligation. She turned to face him. They watch us like fireflies in a jar. If we burn out, the night comes back. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. Then let's burn brighter. New embassies were formed. A mixed-species council was proposed, a rotating seat for human Darthi decisions. Gabriel was nominated, reluctantly, and then overwhelmingly confirmed. I didn't sign up for politics, he muttered as he read the appointment ceremony draft. You bonded with a queen, Sela said, smirking. That is politics. Can I object with a well-placed joke? You may try. The day of the ceremony, the chamber felt like it had swallowed a nebula, heavy with pressure, full of light. Gabriel stood beside Sela, both wearing formal attire. His uniform had evolved again, Silver bands on the arms now symbolized dual heritage. Her gown bore the crest of both their houses, woven in shifting threads of light. When he spoke, he felt the weight of every eye. "I'm not a diplomat," he began. "I'm not even particularly patient, but I know what it means to crash into the unknown, and what it means to be offered a hand instead of a weapon. That's what she did for me, and that's what we want to offer all of you, not perfection, not promises, just possibility." The chamber held its breath. And then applause. They shared a drink alone later, on the balcony overlooking the starfields. "They clapped," he said, leaning on the rail. "They accepted. Is that the same thing?" "No," she said, "but it's close." He turned to her. "What now?" "We keep going. And if we stumble, then we stumble forward." Months passed. Progress was slow but real. Humans arrived on Darthy vessels. Darthy engineers landed on human stations. Shared technology was exchanged. Joint missions began, exploratory at first, then diplomatic. And then a crisis. The neutral planet of Farava sent out a distress call. An energy storm had disabled their orbital station. Thousands stranded, limited atmosphere. Both the Human Alliance and the Darthy responded. Together, Gabriel stood on the bridge of the rescue vessel, flanked by a Darthy pilot and a human medic. "We've got 90 minutes before the upper coils destabilize," the medic said. "Then we make it count," Gabriel replied. They landed under fires. Not weapons, debris, radiation, storms. Sela joined them on the ground, against her advisor's protests. She wore adaptive armor that shimmered with kinetic fields. "You shouldn't be here," he said, helping her out of the descent pod. "And you should." "Good point." They carried children to the evac shuttles. They used old tech, repurposed ideas, desperate instincts. And they saved all but 12. Later, standing beside the makeshift medical bay, Gabriel sat with a young girl who clutched a fractured air mask. "You're real," she whispered. "You're the Queen's human." He smiled. "I'm my own human, but yeah, I belong to her too." "And she to you." He looked up. Sela stood nearby, watching. "Yeah," he said, "she does." Back aboard Veretal, the footage of the rescue spread like wildfire. Not curated, not politicized, just raw documentation. Queens in the mud. Humans under alien sky. Saving strangers together. "You made history," Zorani said, entering the council chamber after the broadcast. "We got lucky," Sela replied. "You earned trust." "You sound almost supportive." Zorani sighed. "I don't like being wrong, but I hate being stubborn more." Sela studied her. "Then we begin again." "Yes," Zorani said, "into the stars." Gabriel and Sela took time for themselves when they could. Not much, but enough. On the edge of known space, a moon with bioluminescent forests became their secret retreat. They walked beneath glowing trees, bathed in pools that hummed with heat, talked of home, of fears, of the future. "Will we ever be normal?" he asked one night. "Define normals." "Not being watched, not being symbols." "Then no." "Does that bother you?" "Sometimes," she said, "but I would rather be your anomaly than anyone else's tradition." He kissed her deeply. And they made love beneath alien stars. 2 years later, the United Galactic Coalition was founded. She was its sovereign. He was its voice. They stood together as the galaxy watched. Not perfect, but possible. And as the Coalition's first flagship launched on its diplomatic tour, its name was announced. Bonfires, named for what burned and united. For what survived. And above all else, for what chose to love when every law said it shouldn't. In the end, they were not just human and queen. Not just diplomat and monarch. But something far rarer. Partners. And the galaxy, however slowly, learned to follow. Not because of the power they held, but because of the promise they kept. 5 years had passed. 5 years since the Coalition Charter was signed aboard the flagship Bonfire. 5 years since Gabriel Marin and Queen Selatari stood side by side beneath the arched constellations and promised peace to a galaxy that had forgotten how to believe in it. In that time, progress had sprouted like cautious shoots through broken stone, human Darthy trade routes stabilized, cultural exchanges flourished, joint educational institutes formed across 3 major systems, a fragile equilibrium held. But equilibrium is not peace. and cracks had begun to spread beneath the surface. It started with whispers from the fractal rim, a cluster of fringe systems that had always kept 1 foot in and 1 foot out of coalition oversight, shipping delays, missing convoys, navigational anomalies. And then came the message. It arrived encoded and unsigned, but unmistakably human in design. The bond is a lie, the Queen does not speak for us, the human is compromised. Sela stared at the projection as it flickered in the dark chamber, her expression unreadable. Gabriel stood beside her, older now, a little grayer, his smile less reckless but no less real. That's a creative, he muttered. It's a declaration, she said, one meant to fracture. Or provoke. It does both. By morning, they were in council. The chamber had grown since its early days, expanded to include not just human and Darthy voices, but delegates from 7 allied species. Zorani now served as High Moderator, her authority tempered by years of earned respect. This is not the first disruption, she said, but it is the first to name you directly. Gabriel exhaled. Well, I always said being famous was overrated. Sela leaned forward. Do we know where the transmission originated? A cloaked being on the council, representing the Rin matriarchy, spoke with a voice like humming glass. Not precisely, but triangulation suggests a relay near the Adrosian expanse. Zorani nodded. We propose an envoy be sent to investigate, discreetly. I'll go, Gabriel said without hesitation. Sela turned sharply. You will not. You need someone they trust. You are our symbol, our bond, your capture. Would unravel everything, he finished. I know, but doing nothing will do the same. She was silent for a long time. Then you do not go alone. The mission team was small. Gabriel, 2 Darthy operatives, 1 human communications analyst, and a neutral pilot from the Lithari swarm. Their ship, a hybrid skimmer named Startrace, slipped through the lanes in stealth mode, avoiding major waypoints. Its interior hummed with quiet tension. You think they'll talk? The analyst asked as they neared the relay. They won't need to, Gabriel said, eyes scanning the sensor data. The silence will speak for them. And it did. The relay was empty, but not uninhabited. Signs of life recent. Tools left in haste, half-finished data threads, signs of self-erasure. Whoever had been here, they had vanished only hours before. But they left one thing behind. An emblem etched into the wall. A shattered version of the Coalition's sigil. They returned in silence. Sela waited for him in the landing bay, flanked by her guards. She dismissed them with a glance. You're safe, she said, more relief in her voice than formality. For now, he replied, but it's spreading. This isn't just political, it's coordinated. Someone wants to break what we built. Then we must hold it together, harder. He touched her face, even if it breaks us. She closed her eyes, especially then. In the following weeks, the unrest grew bolder. An outpost on Kelwyn Prime was bombed. No deaths, but the message was clear. On a live broadcast, a masked speaker claimed responsibility. We reject the bond, they said. We reject this manufactured peace. We reject the union of species who should never have mixed. Sela ordered the security forces to investigate. The coalition hesitated. Some systems threatened to withdraw, others demanded proof. Gabriel found himself at the center of a storm. They think I'm the problem, he said to Sela late one night. No, she replied, they think we are the proof that the universe is changing and they fear change. So what do? We remind them what change looks like. A summit was called again. This time under different terms. Gabriel stood on the platform, alone first. I won't pretend this is easy, he said, or clean, or even safe, but you don't build peace by agreeing on everything. You build it by standing beside someone when everything tells you to walk away. That's what Sela and I have done, and that's what this coalition was born from. Then she joined him. They call us impossible, she said, and yet we remain not perfect, not untouchable, but real and still here. Slow applause. Some hesitant, but growing. That night she found him in the observatory. You didn't need me up there, she said. I always need you. Even when I disagree with you. Especially then. She stepped closer, rested her forehead against his. Then let us disagree forward. Deal. The insurgents did not vanish. But they fractured. Each speech, each rescue, each joint initiative took another piece from their momentum. One by one, worlds reaffirmed their commitment. And in time, the silence returned. Not of fear, but of steadiness. 10 years after the first crash that brought a human into the Queen's chamber, a statue was unveiled in the Coalition Plaza. Not of them alone, but of many. Human Darthy Lithari Silene Kalen, each species entwined in a ring. At the center, two figures. Not royal, not formal, but hand in hand. Just two souls who had refused to let go. On the evening of its unveiling, Gabriel and Selah stood in its shadow. "You ever think we'd get here?" he asked. "Not once," she said. "Then now, I wonder what's next." He pulled her close. Into the stars. Into whatever comes together. And so they remained not symbols. Not rulers. But partners. In love. In defiance. And in the echo of peace they helped create.